Hello, everyone. Today, we begin a new series of videos, a series dedicated to some of the greatest figures in the history of sport. As you may have noticed, we're using artificial intelligence for the narration. For now, we see it as a practical solution. None of the people behind Sport Pro History are native English speakers, and even those among us who could speak English fluently are, well, still a little too shy. Maybe one day someone will find the courage to step forward and do it in person. But for now, this is how our stories will be told. And we believe the stories themselves are what truly matter. Our very first video is dedicated to one of the greatest talents Austrian football has ever produced, Gerhard Hanappi. Let's begin. Imagine a city trying to stand back up, a city still carrying the weight of a devastating war. It's February 16th, 1929. The city is Vienna, the capital of Austria. The First World War has ended, but its scars are still everywhere, on the streets, in the buildings, and in the lives of the people who call this city home. In a small house in Vienna, on that cold winter day, a boy is born. A boy who, without anyone knowing it yet, will go on to change the history of Austrian football. His name is Gerhard Hanappi. Growing up in Vienna during those years was not easy. The war had left deep wounds, economic hardship, social tension, political uncertainty. And yet, the city was alive. There was pain, yes, but there was also hope. A quiet belief that things could be rebuilt, that life could move forward, that mix of struggle and optimism would shape Hanappi's character, because Gerhard didn't grow up in comfort. He grew up learning how to endure, how to adapt, and how to think. From a very young age, one thing became clear. Gerhard Hanappi loved football, not just as a game. Football was his escape, it was his language. It was a way to express himself in a world that often had very little to offer. In 1942, at just 13 years old, he joined Wacker Vienna. It wasn't the biggest club in Austria, but it had a proud tradition and a loyal following, and it would become the place where Hanappi began to shape his identity as a footballer. Even then, he stood out, not because he was the fastest, not because he was the strongest, but because he understood the game. His coaches noticed it immediately. Gerhard had an exceptional football mind. He read the game before it happened. He anticipated movements. He controlled the rhythm. He wasn't reacting. He was planning. Many would later say that watching Hanappi play was like watching an architect at work, someone who didn't just see the ball, but the entire structure of the match. And that comparison would turn out to be more accurate than anyone imagined. In 1947, at just 18 years old, Gerhard Hanappi made his debut for the first team. That same year, with Wacker Vienna, he won the Austrian championship. It was a remarkable achievement, not just for the club, but for a teenager who was already showing signs of something special. This wasn't the success of a single player. It was the success of a team. But Hanappi was clearly becoming one of its guiding forces. A future leader was emerging. In 1950, everything changed. Hanappi made the most difficult decision of his career. He left Wacker Vienna to join Rapid Vienna, one of the most prestigious and powerful clubs in the country. The reaction was explosive. Wacker supporters felt betrayed. The press was relentless. The move became so controversial that it earned its own name, the Hanappi Affair. For a period of time, the situation was so tense that Gerhard wasn't even allowed to play. 6 months passed, 6 months without football. But eventually, the transfer went through. And when Hanappi finally stepped onto the pitch wearing Rapid Vienna's colors, a new chapter in Austrian football had begun. With Rapid Vienna, Gerhard Hanappi didn't just play football, he defined it. He became the captain, the leader, the reference point for the entire team. Between 1950 and 1964, Hanappi won 7 Austrian League titles with Rapid, 7 championships built on consistency, intelligence, and character. Rapid Vienna wasn't just a football club. For its supporters, it was an identity, a way of life, and Gerhard Hanappi became its symbol. Rapid also made its mark in Europe. In 1961, the club reached the advanced stages of the European Cup, the competition we now know as the Champions League. They didn't lift the trophy, but they earned respect. Across Europe, teams knew Rapid Vienna, and they knew Gerhard Hanappi. His influence extended far beyond club football. Hanappi made his debut for the Austrian national team in 1948 at just 19 years old against Sweden. From that moment on, he became a constant presence. Over the course of his international career, he earned 93 caps, a remarkable number for his era. The defining moment came in 1954 at the World Cup in Switzerland. Austria surprised the world. Victories against Scotland and Czechoslovakia set the tone, and then came the third-place match, Austria versus Uruguay, a football giant. Austria won. It was a historic achievement, a bronze medal that remains one of the greatest moments in Austrian football history. And once again, Gerhard Hanappi was at the heart of it. Not every chapter was glorious. At the 1958 World Cup, Austria failed to repeat its earlier success. The team exited the tournament early. Hanappi was still there, still leading. But football, as always, can be unforgiving. In 1955, he was officially named captain of the national team, a recognition of his authority, his intelligence, and his integrity. By then, he was more than a player. He was a role model. When Gerhard Hanappi retired from football in 1964, he walked away with a full career behind him. But he wasn't walking away from ambition. Football had been his first passion, but it wasn't his only one. For years, while playing at the highest level, Hanappi had been studying architecture. In 1957, he graduated, and after retiring, he devoted himself completely to this second life. Once again, he didn't choose the easy path, and once again, he excelled. As an architect, Gerhard Hanappi helped design important buildings in Vienna, but one project stood above all others, the Weststadion, the future home of Rapid Vienna. The stadium was inaugurated in 1977, and in recognition of everything he had given to the club, it was named the Gerhard Hanappi Stadium. Few players ever leave such a mark, both on the pitch and on the skyline of their city. On August 23, 1980, Gerhard Hanappi passed away after a battle with cancer. He was just 51 years old. His death sent shockwaves through Austrian football. For Rapid supporters, it felt like losing a family member. But legends don't disappear. They remain in stories, in memories, in places. In 1999, Rapid Vienna supporters voted Gerhard Hanappi as the third greatest player in the club's history, behind Ernst Ockvirk and Matthias Sindelar, an honor that reflects not only his success, but who he was. Gerhard Hanappi was more than a footballer. He was a thinker, a leader, an architect on the pitch and beyond it. His life reminds us that greatness isn't only measured in trophies or goals. It's measured in impact, in character, in the legacy you leave behind. And that is why Gerhard Hanappi is not just part of football history, he is football history. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.